My favorite place to go after school when I went to my mom's Blockbuster. Coming up here on today's show, we're going to get into some blockbuster trades that the Las Vegas Raiders could do before the NFL trade deadline on November 4th, 4 p.m. Eastern Time. My name is Mitchell Renz, and with the Las Vegas Raiders being on a bye this week, and a lot of the news, a lot of the rumors that we're hearing right now around the NFL, around the silver and black, is regarding the trade. So I said, you know what? I'm going to have a little bit of fun today, and I'm going to be breaking down the top players that I think the Raiders could be looking for in a trade, and I'm also going to be talking about some of the trades that the players could be looking to give up on in a sense. Now, every trade that you're going to see, there has been rumors, there's been a report around one of these players in regards. I'm also going to sit up here and give you a trade idea for every single player that I talk about here today. Now, if you don't already know, I hope that you're subscribed, hope those notifications are turned on, and if any trade ends up going down, we will be going live. First player coming up here on the show is going to be Malcolm Koonce, and I know that there's going to be a lot of rumors. There already is rumors around Maxx Crosby, Tyree Wilson. But sometimes I do think that teams pick up the phone and they call asking about other players just to see what the availability is around that position. And if you were to ask me, well, if you're calling about Max, if you're calling about Tyree, I personally think that teams should pick up the phone and call about Malcolm Koonce because, let's face the facts, doesn't look like it's that good of a fit. He's on that one-year deal. He's going to be a free agent at the end of the season. And I do think that teams would probably look at the Koonce situation, look at the Raiders' current situation, and wonder, is it a Raiders problem or is it a Malcolm Koonce problem? And because there were so many teams that were interested in him this offseason, and because there are always teams that are looking for that extra edge rush help, I do wonder if there could be a team that picks up the phone and gives the call for Malcolm Koonce. So my first trade idea is going to be around the San Francisco 49ers. There were some rumors circulating earlier this week that the 49ers apparently picked up the phone and they were calling about Maxx Crosby, that they apparently were calling about Tyree Wilson. I spoke with Tyree Wilson on Wednesday, and he told me that he hasn't heard anything in regards to trade rumors from the Raiders standpoint or teams showing interest in him. So the trade that I cooked up here today is this. The Raiders received a 4th-round pick. The San Francisco 49ers, they get Malcolm Koonce, and they're going to get a 7th-round pick. For San Francisco, they have a lot of fourths because they have mastered the comp pick formula. They're going to have, I believe, 3 or 4 4th-round picks this year. So because they're looking for extra edge rush help, that's the first trade. Let's go to the next one coming up here on today's show, sponsored by Prize Picks, Jackson Powers Johnson. I want to keep saying this over and over again. I love JPJ. I wish the Raiders would love JPJ. I personally would not want to trade him, but if you follow this team, if you follow this show, you'll know that the Raiders staff, this regime, clearly isn't really in love with Jackson Powers Johnson. He was benched Week 7 for Alex Kappa. The Raiders drafted Caleb Rogers and Charles Grant. So for me, I look at what teams could look for extra offensive line help. And the Minnesota Vikings were a team that came to mind. Honestly, the Chargers were a team that came to mind, but we're not going to trade with our interdivision rival. So I'm going to sit up here and I'm going to look at the offensive line that I think needs the most help and has a quarterback that they need to assure is the quarterback for their future. So y'all love him. Y'all know him. It's my guy Jeremy Chuggs' team, the Houston Texans, and they're going to get JPJ. They could put him at center. They could put him at guard. They could probably put him almost anywhere on that O-line. He would be one of their better O-line players for that organization. I also did put this tweet out, or Chuggs put a tweet out earlier this week with this exact same trade. I personally would want a 2nd-round pick. Again, I am asking for a lot, but I also would sit back and go, I honestly think Pete Carroll and Spytek would take like a 5th-rounder for him. So we're going to try to meet somewhere in the middle here. 4th-round pick for the Silver and Black. The Houston Texans end up getting JPJ. Here's going to be, though, the pinned comment on today's show. How many trades will the Raiders make before the deadline? You can type 0. You can type 1, 2, 3. Let me know down below. My answer is going to be coming up here after this YouTube ad break. I feel like if I'm saying all these flipping trades, Chuggs is going, it's not going to be 6 or 7. I think, honestly, I'm hoping for 1. When you do what I do, when you talk about this team, my big underlining thing is this. With where the Raiders are at right now, you have to do something. And if you don't do anything, that might be even more of a concern, because if you didn't do anything, that tells me that I don't know if you think anything is wrong going into your bye week. And if you're a Raiders staff member and you don't think that there's anything wrong with this team, then you must live underneath a rock. Let's go to another play here that I think that the Raiders could potentially trade away, and it's going to be wide receiver Jakobi Meyers. If I do this show and I don't feature Jakobi, who I will be very honest, there are less and less reports around Jakobi essentially being a lock to be traded away, where, you've seen it even from a guy like Jeremy Fowler say, I think there's like a 35% chance of him end up being traded. Meyers did not play against the Chiefs. Multiple teams are interested. He keeps doubling down saying that he wants to be dealt. So if there are players out there that NFL teams don't want to be traded, and wide receiver right now I would say is probably the top position out there in terms of talent, in terms of guys on the market. So let's just send him to the only team on Instagram that he follows, the New England Patriots. Now I know the Patriots were the team that drafted him, and I'm sure New England's always going to have a soft part in Jakobi's heart, because they gave him his shot, right? It's just the way that the NFL works. It's the way that people work. But Kyle Duggar has been a player that's been on the trade block for a long time. Jakobi Meyers has been a player that's been on the trade block for a long time. And I just remember back in August, there was a lot of rumors. There was a lot of reports from people that have gotten a lot of stories right. One person in particular, Ricky, right? And he was really connecting Duggar to the Raiders, and he was connecting Jakobi to the New England Patriots. I think that this is a fair compensation, because I think Jacoby's the better player. If you guys want to let me know any trade that you see, don't be afraid. Let me know down below your thoughts. Coming up next here on the show, though, let's talk about some players that the Silver and Black could potentially go out and trade for. I really focus on two positions, because there are two positions right now that when you follow a lot of the beat reporters out there, a lot of the beat reporters are saying, I'm not saying Raiders beat reporters, by the way. I'm saying NFL beat reporters. They are throwing out a lot of positions, and there's two positions mainly that they keep linking to the Silver and Black. Before I get into which players I'm trading for and what those trades are, today's show sponsored by our awesomes here, guys, Prize Picks. And this show is brought to you by them, and you and I make decisions every day, but on Prize Picks, being right can get you paid. Don't miss any of the excitement this season on Prize Picks, where it's good to be right. On Prize Picks, how you play, it's up to you. If you want flexibility, choose a flex play, where you can get paid even if one of your picks misses, and that's what you're going to see on screen. Now, I am going to be honest, I'm recording this video on Thursday, so I actually do not know whether or not I was able to put money in my pocket yet. When you guys watch this video, you're going to know if I was able to turn that 10 and get it into $80. Here's the bottom line. This is the best time of the year, though, to get started with our sponsor, Prize Picks, because of football, basketball, baseball. I mean, what more could you possibly ask for? Download the app today. Use code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That is code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. It's good to be right. Let's go to the first player here that I'm going to target in a trade, and if you've heard me say his name, to me, I'm going to keep putting guys out there that I think is a legitimate chance. And recently in an ESPN article, a bunch of these beat reporters went out and they ranked the top 25 players that they thought could be dealt. Riq Woolen was number 4 on that list, and he's got high upside. He's got the connection to Pete Carroll. The Raiders are looking for corners. Seattle has been looking to trade him, and here's what Jeremy Fowler had to say on the potential of Seattle moving on from Riq. Multiple league execs have Woolen marked as a strong trade candidate leading into the deadline. They've been wanting to move him for a while. One exec said he doesn't fit what Mike McDonald wants to do. Woolen would be best served going to a team that can use his man coverage traits. And quite frankly, I think the Raiders need to play a little bit more man. I think that we're playing way too much cover 3 right now, and I think it's kind of eating us up alive. Teams know what we're going to do. They're prepping for it. We're not good enough to make those adjustments. But to me, I obviously want to see more of Darian Porter. I don't know what the infatuation is. I don't know why Kai Blue Kelly doesn't have to go out there and compete, but everybody else does. If you're not going to play Darian Porter, shit, maybe you'll play Riq Woolen. But I also want to say this. Got to give a lot of credit to Eric Stokes. This is a guy low-key having a very good football season. Now, maybe it's because people know, well, why would I target Stokes? Because when I just target Kai Blue, that the ball's going to be completed. We need another corner. The Raiders have been linked to many corners already this offseason, and I will keep saying the number one guy that I think they make a deal for is Riq Woolen. So here's the trade. Raiders get Riq. The Seattle Seahawks, they get a 5th-round pick. If you're asking me, do they have a 5th? Yes, the Raiders have a 5th-round comp pick. Let's go to another cornerback here, and it's going to be Alontae Taylor, cornerback from the New Orleans Saints. And I have mentioned these two players before. These are the top 2 corners that I personally think that the Raiders will go out and try to get. When you talk about Taylor, you got to talk about the coaching connection. Marcus Robinson is a name that keeps on getting brought up because he is the Raiders cornerback coach who coached Taylor last season. Also, Joe Woods. He is a part of our defensive staff who also coached Taylor last year in the New Orleans Saints. Are right now a team looking for draft picks. In fact, they only have, I want to say 5, maybe 6 draft picks going into 2026. So that's an organization that's looking for extra draft capital. Here's what Fowler had to say. This would be a surprise, but it's still one to watch. The Saints don't want to trade Taylor, but will consider it if they receive a strong offer. He is on the radar of a few teams. Taylor is a 2026 free agent who figures to earn a big payday, and is worth noting that the Saints have a young core of defensive backs they like in Kool-Aid McKinstry, Quincy Riley, and Jonas Sanker. For Taylor, though, again, 6'1", 200 pound, but he gives you that versatility. And I think that for me, sitting up here as the Raiders Report host, what's something that we need? We need a corner that could potentially play on the outside and a corner that could potentially play on the inside. And that's exactly what Taylor is. I asked our Saints host here, Trizzy Trace, what would he want in a trade for Taylor? Now, he told me either a 2nd or a 3rd-round pick. I'm going to be honest, that's never going to happen for the Raiders. They are not going to pay a lot because this organization with Spytech has been very cheap. So instead of offering them 1 pick, I'm going to offer them 2 picks so that way they can get some extra draft capital for a player that, from what it sounds like, they are not going to bring back. Now, if you're the Raiders and you make this trade, I would imagine that you are going to do some sort of contract extension with Alontae Taylor. Only time can tell. Saints probably don't love this offer, but this is what I think I would offer New Orleans for Taylor. And I say that because I know Riq Woolen is a possible option for the silver and black. Coming up here, though, I got one more trade idea, and I've been getting a question a lot on social media. I've been seeing it down also in the YouTube comments with, hey, Mitch, you know, the Raiders, they're on a bye. What are you doing this week? I know the Raiders are on a bye. I don't take days off here. And if anybody wants to be able to hang out with me for any of my live shows, there is a chance. Again, I actually do not know whether or not at the time that I'm making this video, if I am going to be live for World Series Game 1. There's a chance. I'm giving you guys a deal on Thursday Night Football. So whether or not that happens or not, we'll see. But no matter what, our Chat Sports team will be live for Game 1 of the World Series. I know there's probably a lot of Dodgers fans that watch this program. Even if I'm not there, I hope you go show love. I hope that you go support. If I am there, I'm down to get a little bit crazy. I am also going to be live on our NFL Red Zone show at Chat Sports at 12:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Pull up over there. And then Monday Night Football. Chiefs, Commanders. We're going to be rooting for Mariota. Let's freaking do it. The final player that I want to talk about here today, Boye Mafe. And some of you are probably like, wow, 2 Seahawks players and a Saints player. Why not go with another team? You know why I'm not going to go with another team? Because Pete and this regime love their guys. And Boye Mafe is a player that could potentially be dealt. In the article released by ESPN, Mafe did not crack that top 25, but he did make the list in terms of an honorable mention. And when you look at the production from him this season, kind of reminds me a little bit of a Malcolm Koonce situation where he's a talented player, but you clearly see something is not going right for him right now. And when you look at some of his best seasons, 2023, that was after a year with Pete Carroll. So, you know, if I'm Pete, I'm going, this was a player that we took in the 2nd round. This was a player in 2023, my final year, had 9 sacks, 52 tackles, was definitely trending in the right direction because this has been a team that's been linked to defensive linemen, and because this is a team that needs to be able to figure out a way to get after the quarterback, here is my final trade idea of the show. And this is one that I looked at. I went to our guy, Will Ortner, our Seahawks host here at Chat Sports, and I said, what would you want for Boye Mafe? And this isn't the exact trade that he spit out, but I thought it was fair value for them. And it was also value in terms of a player that they were looking for. Again, I didn't want to trade away JPJ. But to me, he goes, the only way I would trade away Boye Mafe is if you could give us Jackson Powers-Johnson. So here's the trade that we ended up getting to. Again, this is not nearly the amount that I would want for JPJ, but this show is also kind of based on what I think Pete would do, what kind of I would do. And that's how we've mirrored this together. Though, if you want to take a screenshot of this trade and you want to tag me, you want to take a screenshot of any of the trades that I showed you today, make sure you tag me on IG. Make sure you tag me on Twitter. I'm going to be at MitchellRens365, but I know we threw a lot of different trades at you. This is that time of the year. With the deadline being the 4th of November at 4 p.m. Eastern Time, it's definitely something to consider. Also, something to consider. This one literally just happened, so if you want to know kind of the timing of when this video is going out, linebacker Logan Wilson from the Cincinnati Bengals, he requested a trade. And I'm not saying it's going to be a good fit, but I do know that the Raiders wanted Jermaine Pratt. Jermaine Pratt is no longer here. Yes, they found a replacement for him, but if Logan Wilson could be a name to keep in mind, I'm just going to throw out that name here on the Raiders Report.